Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jordan and thank you so much for clicking on one of my bookish videos. Today I'm going to be filming my most anticipated releases video for the months of July through December 2025. I filmed one of these videos at the beginning of this year for all of the books that I was excited to read through July, and now that we are officially in the second half of the year, I wanted to talk about the books that are on my immediate radar, books I cannot wait to read. So hopefully you will find a few new books to add to your TBR for the end of this year. So if you are interested in seeing me talk about my most anticipated books of the second half of 2025, then keep on watching. Okay, so starting this video off, we have the July releases. We started off July with the release of A Forbidden Alchemy by Stacey McEwen on July 1st. And let me tell you, this is one of my favorite romantasy books of the year. I was gifted a copy by Saga Press, so thank you very much to them. This is a slow burn romantasy book. It is marketed as Peaky Blinders meets Six of Crows, and I think that is completely true. The vibes of this book gave so much Peaky Blinders, and I loved it. It follows Nina and Patrick. They live in this world where there are magical powers, and you have the artisans and the crafters. The artisans are the more wealthy families in power. Basically, Nina meets Patrick when she's really young. She is about to discover what her powers are, and she learns that the world kind of determines who is going to be an artisan and who is going to be a crafter. She takes the wrong vial to give her power, and she turns into this super powerful earth charmer. She can move the earth. She goes to school, she leaves Patrick behind, and she kind of becomes a weapon for the wealthy people in power. You kind of pick back up with her where she decides to leave the artisans. She ends up going to a small town where Patrick is the leader of this rebel group. The romance was so good. This is definitely a slow burn book. I really loved the fantasy world that was created in this book. I was blown away by the ending, the cliffhanger, and I need the second book. The next book is Bittersweet by Haiti Williams, which was released on July 8th, and I'm still waiting to get my hands on a copy of this book. This was 5 stars for me. I believe it is a debut, and it is a literary fiction book. It follows Charlie, who is a young publicist in the book industry, and when she is just starting out in her job, she meets this super famous male author who she starts working for, and they have chemistry from the beginning. So they start an affair. The author is married. She, throughout the entire book, is navigating her relationship with this author. She is deeply in love with him, but it's very clear that he refuses to go public with her. He refuses to acknowledge her in public and in the industry. And above all, I just loved the examination of Charlie's mental health and the effects of this abusive and toxic relationship on her mental health. I think the author wrote Charlie's depression very realistically, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Next, also released on July 8th, was These Summer Storms by Sarah McLean. This book is her contemporary romance debut, I believe, and it follows the daughter of the Storm family, who is this super wealthy, billionaire, super powerful family and dynasty that has been created. And she, Alice, is estranged from her family, and she has to go back to the island where her family is once her father dies. And the entire book is basically just a character study of these different siblings and the mother of the Storms family. It's following the aftermath of the father passing away and the kids trying to win their inheritance from him. And there's also a really wonderful romance subplot in it. So I also gave this book 5 stars. Okay, and then released on July 15th was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This is by the same author as A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which both books are like a cozy romantasy type book, more like magical realism. A Witch's Guide follows our main character, who is a witch, and she was exiled from from her witch's guild when she secretly resurrected her great aunt. And so you follow her in the future when she is running this magical inn that basically like attracts people who need like a home away from home. It has a very wonderful found family. There are all these different very unique characters that kind of found their way to each other in this inn. And then you are following Sarah as she is attempting to get her magic back. There's a wonderful side plot of romance, and I just really loved the representation and how cozy this book felt. Okay, we are now moving into books that have yet to be released that are being released in July. And first, we have Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson, which releases on July 22nd. This is her adult mystery thriller debut, and I absolutely loved it. I love Holly Jackson. She's like my favorite thriller author personally. And while I'm not entirely sure why this is an adult thriller book, it still did feel similar to her young adult thriller and mysteries. It definitely was darker, I will say, which I enjoyed. And essentially it follows Jet, who in the first chapter of the book is almost murdered by an intruder in her home. She then wakes up and finds out that although she survived the attack, she's gonna die in about a week because they did something to her brain and she's due to have an aneurysm any day. And so she decides that her last week of her life, she is going to solve her murder and figure out who attacked her. It was just true Holly Jackson. Jet really reminded me of Pippa from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I loved the side plot of romance, and it was dark and thrilling at times. So I gave this a 4.5 stars. Next, on July 22nd is also the release of Love is a War Song by Danica Nava. This is the author of The Truth According to Ember, and I loved this book. It is a cowboy romance book. It is essentially mimicking and inspired by the Hannah Montana the movie. It follows the main character, who is this super famous singer, and she gets into this scandal where she's essentially being canceled, and she's being canceled because she is indigenous and she was trying to like incorporate indigenous culture into her music. So her manager and like mom decides that she's going to go stay with her grandmother and like her family for the summer and try to learn about indigenous culture because she grew up very removed from her family and that aspect of her heritage. And I just loved it. Like, it was the best cowboy romance, perfect for summer, gave me full Hannah Montana the movie vibes, and I loved the indigenous representation in it. So I gave this a 4.5 stars. Next, on July 22nd is the release of Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. This was gifted to me by Del Rey, so thank you very much to them. This is a dark academia romantasy book where essentially the magic in the world is based off of tarot cards, and our main character Clara is someone who is extremely powerful with the magic she can create from her tarot cards. She was placed in a prison, and at the beginning of the book she is being broken out of prison by the crown prince Callius, who is also like the headmaster of Arcana Academy, where the super like wealthy and powerful magicians go to try and learn their craft and become powerful and learn how to work the tarot cards. The romance in this was really good, and I just really enjoyed the magic aspect. I feel like the tarot cards was super unique in terms of a fantasy setting. It was really interesting and really well done. Okay, next on July 29th is the release of Wrath of the Dragons by Olivia Rose Darling. This was gifted to me by Dell Romance, so thank you very much to them. This is the second book in the Fear the Flames series, which is a romantasy series. It involves dragons. The main character, Elwyn, her power is directly attributed to her dragons that she was like raised with. The second book is definitely a world building book. It follows directly from the events that ended in Fear the Flames. You have the continued romance and issues between Elwyn and Caden. I just had so much fun reading it. I thought that Olivia's writing in this book about grief and Elwyn's mental health was really, really well done. Okay, moving on to August. On August 5th, we have the release of A Theory of Dreaming by by Ava Reed, who is one of my favorite authors. And A Theory of Dreaming is the follow-up to A Study in Drowning, which was her dark academia fantasy book that blew up a few years ago. So this is following the events and the ending of A Study in Drowning, and Effie and Preston's story is coming to an end in this book. So I don't want to give away too much about what this book is about because you definitely need to read A Study in Drowning first, but basically it's dark academia. Effie and Preston are both students at this academy, and they end up entering this fantasy magical world trying to figure out this mystery. I believe that this book is going to be even more high stakes, especially with their love and figuring out what is going on with the Fairy King. So I'm very excited. Also releasing on August 5th is House of the Beast by Michelle Wong. This was gifted to me by Harper Voyager, so thank you so much to them. First of all, just a moment for the cover and the illustration, and it does have really nice sprayed edges. I was really excited to receive this book. My understanding is it's a gothic fantasy. This is a debut author, is my understanding, which I'm super excited about. It is a dark fantasy debut about a young woman who strikes a deal with a mysterious and alluring god to seek revenge on her aristocratic family, featuring illustrations by the author herself. This sounds so good. I cannot wait to read it. I have heard really good things from people who have read early copies, so I'm super excited to read this. Next, also on August 5th, is the release of The Build a Boyfriend Project by Mason Deaver. This is, I believe, his adult romance debut. He has written young adult books. This was gifted to me by Avon Books, so thank you very much to them. I am really excited to read this one. My understanding is it is about a journalist in a dead-end job who agrees to teach his disastrous blind date how to be a better boyfriend. It is a queer romance with transgender representation, which is super exciting. So I will be reading this ASAP. Finally, on August 5th, we have the release of Well Actually by Maisie Eddings. I have read this author's other books, which I have loved all of them. And Well Actually, I knew that I wanted to read because I believe it is inspired based off of Chicken Shop Date, the podcast that Amelia does, and specifically her episode with Andrew Garfield. If you look at the cover of this book, you can tell that that's the inspiration. I just finished reading this book and I absolutely loved it. It follows Eva and Riley, and basically at the beginning of the book, you find out that Eva hosts her own like Chicken Shop Date type show, except for they eat hot dogs. So she has a platform. She posts a video when she's drunk ranting about Riley Cooper, who is this like super famous other like media person, talking about how he was a terrible boyfriend and terrible first hookup when they dated in college. The clip goes viral, so their companies decide to force them to do like a show together. The two of them have very, very clear issues with each other, especially Eva. She holds a lot of resentment for their past relationship, and throughout the book they start to really reconnect and work through a lot of their issues. I loved it. This was definitely a very steamy book, but I really enjoyed the bisexual queer representation in it. I really enjoyed Riley's character. He was very in tune with his emotions. He had gone to therapy and worked through a lot of the reasons why he was not a very good person to Eva in the past, and I just had so much fun reading it. Finally, on August 26th, we have the release of Katabasis by R.F. Kong. I was able to read an early copy of this book thanks to Harper Voyager, and let me tell you, one of my favorite books of the year. I was not disappointed. I had the highest hopes for this book because I love R.F. Kong's books so much. This book is about Alice and Peter, and Alice is going into hell to try and find her missing, presumed dead professor. It is basically about Alice and Peter's descent into the underworld. That is what the title Katabasis means, and their journey through the different layers and levels of the underworld and hell, and pulling different references from different literary pieces pieces of what hell and the underworld means to create this kind of journey that they have to go through to find their missing professor. I loved the fantasy world that Kong created. I really enjoyed both Alice and Peter's character, the bit of a romance that is formed between the two of them, and Alice's journey kind of healing a lot of the things that she had gone through with her professor. And I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. Okay, moving on to September. On September 2nd, we have the release of Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is the author of the Divine Rivals series, which I absolutely loved. My understanding of Wild Reverence is it is set in the same world of Divine Rivals, where basically there's like gods and mortals. However, Wild Reverence is following the gods' story and their romance specifically. Wild Reverence is specifically following Matilda, who I believe is like the messenger god, and then Vincent, who I think is a mortal, and they had a romance and a connection like 10 years ago, and this is following them, I believe, when they meet again and are trying to survive and love each other despite the odds. I just love Rebecca Ross's writing so much, and I enjoy her fantasy and romantasy worlds so much, and I have a feeling this could be a top book of the year for me. Next, on September 30th is the release of Soul Searching by Lila Sage. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year. I love Lila Sage's romances so much. She is the author of the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and Soul Searching is the first book in her new series, the Sweetwater Peak series, I believe. It is a paranormal contemporary romance, which is so fun and perfect for fall. What I know about the book is that it is featuring a small town upholsterer in need of a fresh start, a photographer whose life has come to a screeching halt, and the supernatural force that brings them together. I am so excited about this book. I cannot wait to read it. I'm definitely planning to read it soon. I just got an early copy, and I just can't wait to be back with the characters and the little worlds that she creates. Also releasing on September 30th is Every Spiral of Fate by Tahir Mafi. This is the author of the Shatter Me series, and then Every Spiral of Fate is the 4th book in her series, This Woven Kingdom. I read This Woven Kingdom at the start of this year and really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to keep reading this series, especially after finding out that she is releasing a new book in this series in September. It is a young adult romantasy series. It is just such a beautiful book about secrets and this really wonderful magic. I can't really give away much about what this book is about, but it is definitely a highly anticipated 4th book in this series that is about desperate confessions, impossible decisions, unfathomable magical power, a love so devastating it rewrites destinies. And I am super excited for this, as is all of the fans of this series. Moving on to October. On October 7th, we have the release of Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. I am so excited for this new book from her. Stephanie Garber is the author of the Caravel and Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Once Upon a Broken Heart is one of my favorite romantasy series of all time. Alchemy of Secrets is her adult romantasy debut, which is super exciting. It's set in a whole new world from Caravel and Once Upon a Broken Heart. I don't know much about it, but from my understanding is it's set in a more current world, less like historical fiction, I believe, and it's more dark academia setting. And I'm interested to see the way that she does an adult book versus her young adult books, but all I know is that romance is going to be amazing and her writing is just so unique and so wonderful. Releasing on October 14th is Red City by Marie Lu, who is the author of the Legend series, and this is her adult debut book. It's marketed as The Godfather Meets the Magicians. Red City is a dark and deadly contemporary fantasy of magical warfare, star-crossed ambition, and the pursuit of perfection at any cost, set in a glittering alternate Los Angeles. I am really excited to read this. I loved the Legend series. I read back a few years ago when I was getting more into young adult fantasy, and I'm really interested to see what she does in an adult fantasy series. Also releasing on October 14th is Revolve by Bao Cabra. This is the third book in the Off the Ice series, which is following the first book, Collide, and is a hockey romance series that I absolutely love. Revolve is following a figure skater, Sierra, and a hockey player from the hockey team that the first two books follow, Dylan. And I am super excited. I believe Sierra was a Olympic figure skater who had a career-altering injury who is trying to get back on the ice. And Dylan is someone who we saw a lot of in the first two books, who's very reckless, who I believe was just kicked off of the hockey team. So I'm really excited for this third book in this series. Releasing on October 21st is Good Spirits by BK Borson, and I am so excited for this new book. This is a new series separate from her Love Light Farm series and separate from her First Time Caller series, and this is a paranormal romance by her, which is so exciting. It is a whimsical new holiday romance, this time with a magical twist that will have everyone falling in love with the ghost of Christmas past. I am super excited to see her do like a magical realism, paranormal type romance, and I feel like it coming out in October, meant to be more of a holiday romance, is going to be the perfect way to get ready for the holidays, and I cannot wait to read this book. Also releasing on October 21st is Girl Dinner by Alvi Blake. This book was gifted to me by Tor Books, so thank you so much to them. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year. Alvi Blake is one of my favorite authors. This is a very new and unique book for her, set outside of her normal like sci-fi, fantasy, magical realism type book. It is a darkly fun novel about power, lust, and eating your fill as wealthy moms and sorority girls practice a sinister new wellness trend. It is going to be a very satirical horror type book. I am so excited for this. I literally have been waiting to read it, and I'm going to be reading my arc soon. Olive can do no wrong. Releasing on October 28th is Moth Dark by Kika Hatsopoulou. This is the author of the Threads That Bind series, and I am so excited to read this book. It is a brand new compulsive romantasy about a girl obsessed with the dark and the shadowy magical prince she falls in love with. Perfect for fans of Holly Black. I have heard really good things about this book so far from early reviewers, and I just love the way that Kika does her young adult romantasy, and I believe it is a queer romance, which I am super excited about. Finally, in October, also on October 28th, is the release of Our Vicious Oaths by N.E. Davenport. I was gifted a copy of this book by Harper Voyager, so thank you very much to them. I have heard so much about N.E. Davenport's books, and I just have been in the mood for a very amazing romantasy, and I think that is what I'm going to get with this book. It is marketed as entering a new world of romantic fantasy, a journey of powerful magic, enemies to lovers romance, and political intrigue as a warrior princess and vengeful king from rival fae courts form a fierce alliance to take down a merciless despot. I am really excited to read this book. I've heard fantastic early reviews, and I feel like this is just going to be the perfect way to go into the fall of romantasy and fantasy books. Okay, moving to November. This is the time of year where we start to peter out and not get as many new releases. I'm hoping that more will be announced for November and December, but I normally have less on my TBR in those months. So we have Coldwire by Chloe Gong, which is releasing on November 4th, and I am so excited for this new book. This is a new dystopian series from Chloe Gong, who has has typically done young adult and adult romantasy books, and it is a book where humanity is moved to virtual reality to flee their deteriorating world, following two young soldiers who must depend on unlikely allies in their fight for survival. I have been in such a dystopian mood this past year. I feel like there have been a few books that I've absolutely loved in the genre, and I cannot wait to see Chloe Gong do a dystopian book, especially dystopian romance. And this is definitely one of my most anticipated books. I really, really hope I enjoy it. All right, so that is it for this video talking about my most anticipated releases in the second half of 2025. I hope that you found something on this list that is intriguing to you that you want to check out yourself. I try to incorporate a bunch of different romance, fantasy, and other books in this mix, and I'm just so excited. Fall is my favorite time of year for fantasy and romantasy books, and I feel like we are set up for a really great number of releases at the end of the summer into the fall. So if you enjoyed this bookish video from me, then make sure to check out my channel and subscribe if you want to stick around for more, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!